Martin Plante, who is from the GRC, the RCMP, Inspector Denis Turcotte, who is from Quebec City Police, also Inspector Chief André Goulet from the Sûreté du Québec, and Patrick Lalonde, who is the Assistant Director, and he is from the City of Montreal, again, Quebec City, and then the three members of this integrated national security enforcement team, being introduced by a spokesperson whom you can't see on your screen. She's just to the right, but we'll be introducing who these gentlemen are and probably taking us through the format. But this is the first opportunity we've had to listen to police. And of course, it was Quebec City that responded to the initial calls, which came in just before 8 o'clock last night. And then Quebec responded. So let us listen in live as the police briefing begins.
Thank you for having come this morning with a short notice. Firstly, please be reassured that the police forces are doing their utmost since last evening to ensure the safety of the population of Quebec. All necessary resources, all provisions have been taken in order to shed light on this very serious and sad event. Last evening, the management team against terrorism was deployed in support to the response from the Quebec City Police Force. This work done between the Quebec Provincial Police, the RCMP, this is all done in conjunction, directional, operational, strategic and tactical. We're all working together. We are attacking terrorism through prevention, that is, and response to any event. A control center was established in order to enable police forces to increase their strength and concert all efforts to be deployed. At this point in time, we can confirm 6 dead between the ages of 35 and 60. We offer our deepest condolences to the families of these deceased. At the present time, 75 police officers of the Quebec Provincial Police are working in conjunction with other police forces to collect information and to analyze it. There are investigators that are on site from the major crime units, cyber crime, legal psychologists and profilers. And there are dog handlers as well on site. We are getting reports from the labs, and this will be made available in order that we might expedite the investigation. Patrolling officers have increased their patrols. Any information as related to this event can be given to the Central Command, 1-800-654-4264. Up until now, we have received 46 calls. For all the victims and their next of kin that feel that they want to pray or to consult with police officers or psychiatrists, please go to 1250 Chemin Sainte-Foy, the Jeffrey Hale building. I now give the microphone to my colleague. Thank you very much for having come this morning. Firstly, our deepest condolences to the families that have been affected by this very sad event. It's the entire population of the city of Quebec that is in mourning. Please be assured that the police force in Quebec City has deployed and will be deploying anything and everything that is necessary. I would also thank all the police staff, whether it be civil or in uniform, that have worked close by or at a distance in our support. I will give you a chronology of the events that unfolded since last evening. I wonder if you would get closer to a microphone, please. Thank you. I'm sorry that I have to shift a little bit things on the table. Well, perhaps I can speak a little bit louder as well. Thank you very much for this. Thank you for this brief interruption. Okay, let's put the microphones like this, in this display. Thank you. As I was telling you, that I'm going to give you a chronology of the events that happened since last evening. At about 7:50, we received many calls from 2017 Chemin Sainte-Foy, the cultural center, telling us that shots had been fired. Very quickly, police were on site and have arrested one suspect. Other police officers went within the cultural center and realized that there were many victims and that this is a major incident that has occurred. As soon as that information was relayed to us, a vast operation was unleashed. All police staff available in Quebec City were called upon, our units and our dog handlers as well. Police on site have established a security perimeter to protect the buildings and to help and to assist the victims of this attack. At about 8:10 in the evening, the second suspect gets in touch through 911. He mentions that he is armed and he'd like to speak to us. He seems to want to cooperate with us. He mentions that he's at an access route near the Ile d'Orléans Bridge. That suspect waited for the arrival of the police officer. One was immediately deployed and arrested the individual. At the same time, there is another unit that is deployed to the mosque to support those in patrol that have been on site and to establish a security perimeter to preclude any second or third or fourth event from occurring. Immediately, while all this is unfolding, there's a command post that is established to support our colleagues that are on site. At about 10 p.m., the Joint Task Security Integration Force is unleashed, and that comes under the responsibility of the RCMP, and we're working in close cooperation with them for the resources and for the expertise required. Other actions are to come, but at the moment, everything is under control. By way of conclusion, I must tell you that all mosques now have had increased security and protection since the events, as well as the campus of the University of Laval. Thank you. Thank you for having come, all of you, for this press conference. The investigation is led by the RCMP. That includes members from the Montreal Police Force and the Quebec Provincial Police. The best specialized resources are available, as well as the Quebec Police Force are in support to us and are participating fully in the investigation. All means of investigation are at the disposal of the police officers to get the best information available. The RCMP can confirm that 2 individuals were arrested in conjunction with this event. The investigation is underway in order to identify the motive between the events that have occurred last evening. At this point in the investigation, we can say that the individuals are unknown to police forces. Many witnesses are being met by the investigators. It's too soon to determine any charges that will be laid. The investigation is underway, and the various police forces are working together. There is cooperation that enables the police authorities to join forces together and to focus their action to intervene as quickly as possible should there be any threat or extremist action that might unfold here in the Quebec region. This is a good example of what can occur. Police partners and dog handlers are evaluating and investigating and are taking the necessary measures should there be a need to do so. Again, all partners are calling upon the public to support us by indicating to the police forces possible criminal actions, including terrorist activity. On this, I now give the microphone to my colleague from the Montreal Police Force, Mr. Lalonde, who is going to apprise you of other efforts that are being deployed outside of the actual city of Quebec and in the Montreal area. Thank you. As soon as, in the very first minutes of the event, we were in touch with various Muslim communities. We asked all our police officers to increase the level of vigilance for these communities surrounding the various mosques in the two cities. The night shift was increased into the day shift so that there be a very good presence at the morning prayers. The center of command was established in order to share all the information amongst the various police forces. We're following the situation very closely in order to adapt our strategic intervention measures. All police officers are there on site to meet with members of the Muslim community in order to answer any questions or concerns they might have. Thank you. So I will remind you, there's no one-on-one questions. Now it's a question period. I would ask you to use the microphones in the various corners of the room so that you might be heard. Please identify yourselves, name your news organization, and direct your question to one of the four at the table. Why are you... Please identify yourself. I'm from Canadian Press. How is it you aren't releasing the identity of the suspects? Because there are legal procedures now, and we cannot make any comment on the identity of the suspects.
Start off with and a bit more information on the suspects, what we're doing with them at this point.
Like you want a translation of what the...
If Mr. Goulet can recap a bit what you said prior to that, and then I'd like to know what's your plan for the suspects and when you're going to release more information.
Pour les questions en anglais, par la suite,
For any question in English, fine. Let's deal with the questions in English at the end of the press conference. Okay, we'll continue in a few minutes with perhaps a little bit better sound or... Okay, from the newspaper Le Soleil. Are you convinced that you have all suspects, or are there any other suspects that might be eventually forthcoming? Well, the investigation is underway. There are all kinds of avenues open to us. At this point in time, I have no additional comment to make in this regard. We are confident that the threat is under control. Félix Séguin of TVA News. To whomever is in a position to answer the question. Who are the suspects? Well, age about 20, beginning 30s. Some information was revealed. Can we... Well, at the moment, we don't want to make any comment as to the identity of the suspects. Have you checked the social media or something? At this point in time, we don't want to discuss any specific characteristics of the suspects with respect to the investigation that is underway. Do you feel that the two suspects will be appearing in court by the end of the day? As we mentioned a moment ago, we're discussing this. We should know in the course of the day as to when they will appear in court. At the moment, we don't have any specific hour. What can you tell us about the questioning of the suspects? Since they have been arrested, how are the various investigators proceeding? Well, you will understand, we mentioned a moment ago that This is a methodology for investigations, and we don't want to reveal the identity of the two suspects as they are presently being investigated. What can you tell us about the motives for such an attack? What do we know up until now? Well, it's a little bit early in the investigation to go into specific details. We don't want to deal with that question at this point in time. The investigation is underway, and eventually we would be in a better position to make comments of that nature. It has been said that it is a terrorist act. Well, there are ideological, religious, political reasons. There are motivations for terrorist acts. We know that these are individuals who wanted to put fear into the public. They're involved in violent activity. And as to the specifics of the actual terrorist crime, as opposed to what really happened, well, this will all come out in the investigation. The investigation is, as you know, of a great scope. There are various investigatory techniques and everything at our availability is being used given the seriousness of the event. Thank you. Do you know whether these two suspects were working alone, or are there any others with them? Well, for the moment, nothing indicates to us that there was anybody else involved. The investigation is underway, and you'll readily understand that elements will be cropping up. Some events happened last evening. The investigation is underway now. We aren't in a position to give you all the details of all the questions you might ask, but be assured that when we will be in a position to tell you, we will. But we don't want to speak about any motives now because that's part of the investigation. You will all readily understand why we don't want to deal with what the motive might be at this point and as early in the investigation. Do you have any information as to the origin of these suspects? At the moment, no, we don't want to discuss any origin of the two suspects. No, we don't want to say anything on this at the moment. Can you confirm anything as to their place of residence? Again, we're conducting an investigation. There's all kinds of things happening at the moment in the immediate region. And we really aren't in a position to make any comments or to be specific on any aspect of the investigation. My question would be for Mr. Turcotte. Some events occurred, for example, in Vancouver against the Muslim community. Is there any link here? Well, perhaps I'll answer, or if you wish to answer in my position. Were there any events that occurred at this mosque in the past? Yes, there was an unfortunate event in 2016. Everybody will remember that there was a pig's head that was put there at the mosque. And in cooperation with the investigators, we had a very thorough investigation of that event, and that was an unfortunate event. Yes, that happened. Can you tell us how many police officers are involved and as to the number there? Could you be more specific as to the scope of the deployment? Well, as respect to the Quebec provincial police, I mentioned, Quebec police force, about 200 were on duty, actively on duty. Yes, I can understand that at the moment, people in the mosque were escorted to the arena by police officers. Were there any testimonies of these people who were in the mosque at the time of the shooting? Yes, we're meeting with, just like any other event, we do meet with any witnesses to get the facts as true as they might happen as to the event. And for that reason, we are meeting with all them, and we're doing so as quickly as possible. Do you fear there might be reprisals? And have you done anything to prevent this? In an event such as this one, and terrorist events, there are always measures taken. We look at what we have. We look at what the investigation might reveal. We set up shop and we ensure ourselves, and we want to see what visibility we have in each region as to finding out whether or not there is a fear of a reprisal or of threats. This is always to be studied and studied over again. This can be possible, but again, this is always done, and it's in a constant manner. People have shown their support. There will be vigils and there will be meetings. Yes, indeed. Like there are vigils to be allowed and demonstrations as long as they filled out the necessary forms and advising the police that this event is to take place. There's no problem as long as all this is done in a secure manner. A question for Mr. Turcotte. Following the events that took place last July, what kind of surveillance did you carry out? Well, to any place of worship on our territory, there is surveillance that is done on a sporadic basis for all worship areas, and of course not necessarily just the one mosque for last evening, but all mosques are being watched. And all this has happened, of course, over the years. And with everything that's happening throughout the world and the threats that take place and what happened here last evening, all this has enabled us to intervene very quickly. Apparently, we have details as to some of the victims would have foreign origins. Well, as to the victims themselves, I can't really answer your question because, of course, a little later on, we will have other details when they will be formally identified by the coroner's office. I can't tell you at the moment. I really can't tell you, and I don't want to mislead you. I can't give you the number nor which victims are of European ancestry.
Can you take us through the sequence of events and explain what resources were deployed by Quebec City Police once you understood the magnitude of the events?
I will try to do my best in English.
Thank you.
Okay. We deployed about 2,000 police officers during the night to respond. And do you have another question about that? I don't understand.
Just the sequence of the events. You first started to get calls just before 8 o'clock, if I understand correctly?
Yeah.
Okay. And then at that point, what happened from there?
All the resources available in the city were deployed on the site. And after we called many police officers that were at home came on duty to support.
Have Quebec City Police ever had to deal with an incident of this magnitude?
No, it's the first time.
I have another question for Superintendent Plante. What can you tell us about how the investigation is proceeding and the team that is in place to conduct it? Because the counterterrorism unit involves multiple police forces.
Like our team was deployed and came through the night in large numbers. Like we have our office is located in Montreal, so we got like many investigators working out of the office, many on the floor here in Quebec, working with the service de police de la ville de Québec, la Sûreté du Québec, and they're busy gathering information to advance the investigation.
Why can't you give us more information about the suspect at this point, or potential motive?
We're still in the early stage of the investigation. We're still trying to determine all the facts associated with the incident. So, and not to interfere with the progress of the investigation, we're not going to discuss the specific at this time.
Thank you.
I'd like to just add something as to the address where victims can go to meet with police officers or psychiatrists. 930 Roland in Sainte-Foy. It's the Jeffrey Hale Center. I just wanted to give you the specifics on the address. 930 Roland Baudin Avenue.
Superintendent Plante, can you repeat in English what went on with the second suspect? What happened with him? He contacted you. If you can describe it to me.
The details in relation to the second suspect?
Il a appelé, celui qui avait téléphoné au 911.
Okay, yeah, the suspect contacted 911 and identified himself as being involved with the incident.
And how did he seem during that phone conversation?
I'm not going to go into details in relation.
And I also wanted to know, what can you tell me about this mosque, whether it was on your radar or not?
What do you mean by that question?
Do you mean that this is a mosque that you've been looking at for a long time, that you regularly surveil or find out what is going on at the mosque? Do you keep tabs on what's going on at the mosque?
Like this institution, like all other institutions we have in Canada, they're part of the Quebec institutions. They're the Canadians. They're we're like I'm not exactly following your questions, to be honest.
I just want to know whether this was a mosque that you paid close attention to in particular.
I'm not gonna discuss, like, I'm not gonna answer that question. It's an institution like all others, and we have to respect everybody's freedom of religion and everything. Like, so.
But this mosque was a target before. Can you tell us about that?
I'm not gonna comment that. Like,
what can you tell us about the victims? The ages of the victims.
André, do you want to?
On l'a dit tantôt, 39 puis 39 et 60.
They're between 39 and 60 years old.
And do we know if they're men or women?
They're all men.
Ouais, all men.
They're all men.
Sorry?
They're all men.
They're all men.
Mm-hmm.
Concerning the pig head that you mentioned in June 2016, are you looking into that investigation to see if there's a relation between that act and this one, if the same people were involved?
This investigation is going to be overlooked by the RCMPs and all of us, and see if there is some match.
Okay. Also, are you concerned at all by any sort of retaliation from extremist Muslim groups here in Quebec City? Are you worried about future attacks on the city?
We're not worried about that, but we deploy enough staff to take care of each resident of the city.
Okay, so you do have a plan in place then for...
CJD in Montreal. If I could just get someone to clarify, a lot of people are not understanding why police are calling this an act of terrorism.
Pourquoi on appelle ça un acte terroriste?
Well, we actually engage our structure, like our provincial structure, and considering the amplitude of the incident, and we engage our structure to actually further investigate it, and then that will assist in determining if, in fact, it is a terrorist attack or it's another type of crime.
And is it because the target was part of the Muslim, members of the Muslim community? Does that have anything to do with that as well?
If it was...
If the victims targeted were part of the Muslim community, is that part of the reason why you're calling it a terrorist act?
It's got, like, terrorists can be targeted to like a specific group, but it's not. We didn't engage our structure because it was targeted to a Muslim community, right?
Mr. Plant, will the RCMP be heavily involved in this because of your expertise with terrorist activities, with terrorism investigations? Because, as Mr. Turcotte said, they've never had an incident like this. Will the RCMP be heavily involved in this?
Like, again, our provincial structure comprised not only the RCMP, but the Sûreté du Québec and the Montreal Police. And we have specific expertise to look into these types of incidents, and we're trying to determine exactly what took place. Thank you.
Mike Armstrong, Global News. Just wondering, we've heard a lot about the second suspect and how he was arrested, and I'm wondering what you could tell us about how the first suspect was taken into custody.
In relation to the first suspect, the intervention was conducted at the scene, but I'm not going to go into specifics.
We can't say if he willingly gave himself up or anything to that?
Not at this time. We're not going to go into any details in relation to that.
Monsieur? Giuseppe Valiente, the Canadian Press. Superintendent Plante, can you talk about whether or not police forces have been in contact with police forces and terrorism units outside Canada?
If we have been, like, the investigation is a domestic investigation at this time.
So there's been no contact about this case with foreign police departments?
Like, we're in the early stage of the investigation. We'll gather more information, more evidence, and then we'll move forward.
And finally, there's been a lot of talk about how the political climate in the provinces could be to blame for this. Do you have anything to say about the political climate in Quebec?
I'm not going to discuss any political issues.
Donc, la période de questions maintenant terminée.
So the question period now has ended. The next press conference